We're just a few days short of the 2025 NFL Draft, and it means it's time for final mock drafts for every team in the NFL. We're to the Arizona Cardinals. This is one of the most interesting teams in the league because we've had a lot of talk that they could try to trade back in for a second first-round pick. They could try to trade down from 16. I did not make a trade with Arizona because there was a player that fell right in their laps that just made too much sense to me. At number 16, I went Walter Nolen, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. This kid's in my top 10 overall. Arizona's had him in the building for a top 30 visit. I think he fits perfectly as the 5 tech in that defense, defensive tackle in a 4-man front. I think there's a lot of potential to him. Look, if you think Shamar Stewart was done dirty by Texas A&M or Nick Scorton, you got to kind of feel the same way about Walter Nolen because he looked like a different guy for Ole Miss this past year. I think if Walter Nolen had gone to Ole Miss as a high school senior and played there for 3 years, instead of tolling away in misery at Texas A&M for 2 of them, he would be a top 10 player in this draft. And he might go in front of Mason Graham. The difference is we have a lot more tape on Mason Graham of being real, real good and only 1 year of Walter Nolen on the high side. This, to me, is – look, if Will Johnson was here, I would have gone Will Johnson because I feel the same way about him, that he's a top 10 player in this class. Arizona took care of all of their needs in free agency to a point that they can sit at 16 and take the best player on the board. That's what they do here. It's Walter Nolen at number 16. Second round, you got to add a corner to the outside. I don't think that Arizona's secondary is as stable as some other people do. I love your slot guy. I am fine with one of your outside guys, but I think you need a guy that projects as a true one down the line. So I go Darien Porter, cornerback out of Iowa State. He is a little bit raw, converted from wide receiver a couple years ago. Only 1 year of high-level tape. He was basically a 5-year special teamer at Iowa State, which is odd to me. But he showed last year in zone. He is a dog, and he's got all of the profiles to actually be able to play man down the line. He's just raw. He's still learning to play the position. If I'm not mistaken, he hadn't played it since he was like a freshman or a sophomore in high school and then wound up converting to corner because they were so stuck at wide receiver. Darien Porter, cornerback out of Iowa State. Third round, this is one of those players that I keep winding up with him in Arizona. The offensive line coach from Ohio State is now the offensive line coach for the Arizona Cardinals. It's Donovan Jackson, guard out of Ohio State. Weird career for him. He was a 5-star ballyhooed recruit that never really paid it off at guard. Then he had some better tape at tackle. I do not think he can play tackle in the NFL, just to be clear. I evaluated him exclusively as a guard, and I've kind of laughed at the people that have him as a tackle. He's lead-footed. And people that think, he can just – but it really helps when you have Jeremiah Smith and Travion Henderson and all these other pieces. He's a guard, he's a guard, he's a guard, he's a guard. Now, that's the negative. The positive is that he might be the best locker room leader in this class. And if you don't believe me, go read the quotes from Ohio State coaches about him. It's unbelievable. It honestly, they wax poetic about him so hard that it sounds like they're giving a eulogy at his funeral. He is a really good locker room guy, really, really smart kid. Athletically, he leaves a lot to be desired. If the technique can be rounded out on him, I think he can be a good to maybe even great guard in the league. There's just no miss. I don't think there's any possibility that he doesn't wind up being a top 20-ish guard in the NFL. I think it's very limited that he could be better than a top 12. The range of outcomes is just borderline tiny. So for me, that's a third-round guy, and that's who you get here in the third round. Good guard, just not an elite guard. And if I see one more person put him in the first round, blood's going to come out of my ears, and I'm going to die in this chair. Fourth round, Q Robinson, edge rusher out of Alabama. The exact opposite of everything I just said about Donovan Jackson. We have barely seen Q Robinson. Jackson's played a million games. I think it's 54 at Ohio State. Q Robinson's barely played 54 snaps at Alabama. Less than 400 defensive snaps in his career, but had a 27% pass rush win rate. I think this kid fell victim to he went to a school that had a shitload of edges, and he just never got the opportunity to play. Also had some injury issues that kept him off the field, and he declared early. So now we're here with Q Robinson basically having to take the smallest sample size I think I've ever seen for a player that wound up in my top 110. But he does profile as a really good 3-4 situational pass rusher. And who knows? You might strike gold and this kid be an absolute dog in a 3-4. Q Robinson, edge rusher, Alabama. 5th round, Jack Kaiser, linebacker out of Notre Dame, captain of that defense, was the green dot, and it really shows. He was even doing that at the Senior Bowl. He was getting guys in position at the Senior Bowl in a playbook that he had learned 2 days before. Super smart. I think he'll be a special teams ace. He's just athletically very, very limited. And then finally in the 7th round, Keandre Lambert-Smith, wide receiver out of Auburn. He's been popular in the process, and the loudest team that I have heard on him is the Arizona Cardinals. With only 6 picks, it's really hard to hit every need. I think this is the best way to do it because I get a couple pieces for the defense. I get the guard that I really desperately need for the offense and a potential pass catcher down the line. But I add 4 more pieces to the defense. Jonathan Gannon's a defensive guy, and I think a year or 2 down the line, Arizona could be special defensively. That almost feels weird to say after all these years. I'm at ESPN Draft Nerd, Jeremy Green of ESPN Radio Asheville and the Sportsocracy, and also NFLDraft.net. Go to NFLDraft.net Tuesday night. My draft guide will be out. Prospect profiles, mock drafts, all of my rankings, my big board, everything you could want to prepare for the 2025 NFL Draft, and we will be live for every pick of it right here on YouTube and ESPN Radio Asheville. Every pick of the draft, all of it live, immediate reaction. Subscribe to the channel to see all of it right here. This has been a 7-round mock draft for the Arizona Cardinals.